Well, hello everybody. I'm Shad with the Minority Programmers. If you don't mind advancing to the next slide.
Yep.
And so what we're having today is a CS versus CIS panel. And what the computer science program is, it's part of the College of Engineering and Integrated Science and Engineering and Computer Information Systems within the College of Business. And today we have four wonderful graduates that just graduated in the spring of 2020. You got Megan, Isaac of the CS department, and then Trey and Emily of the CIS department. And so if you can progress to the next slide and the next two actually. The question is, why are we having this event? Personally, I'm a CS major and a CIS minor, and I didn't really know the difference between the two. I kind of completely don't actually know the difference. There hasn't really been a clear distinguishing between the programs. And so I thought it'd be great for not only people who are in the programs to get an idea of what's coming up ahead in terms of job opportunities or the type of work that CS for CIS majors do, but also people who are upcoming freshmen and are still deciding to choose, because a lot of the people who are in both programs have overlap or have come from the other, and also kind of understanding like there's mentors and people from that have already graduated that would love to help people currently in the program. So if you can go next slide. So yeah, as a CS major, I'll kind of go in to what computer science actually is. And this is something that is kind of not necessarily also clear, where computer science is a more theoretical thing as well, not just developing software engineering. So computer scientists study problems that can be solved computationally, and they develop and study ways to make computing more economical. They create programming languages, and they design and build computer systems in a range of ways. So this doesn't, again, just doesn't encompass developing software. It encompasses understanding how a computer thinks, how computers are made, how to design those systems, and how to design those systems efficiently. So someone who programs could just program code, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're making efficient code. And so computer science takes that into account as well, of understanding how computers think as well. Next is kind of computer information systems. I think Gilbert CIS member of the AIS and executive AIS, and also part of this program. So I think she will help explain what this is.
Yes. So basically, computer information system combines like the technical side and the business side. And like, as most of you might know, like basically you have to complete like the business prerequisites before starting like your major courses. So you get kind of a little bit of both sides. So just some like potential careers that CIS prepares students for is like IT architecture and networking, cybersecurity, business intelligence, which is like consulting, and application and software development. If like you choose to go like the very technical route, and are like really good at that kind of stuff, so like that is also a potential career. And yeah, the next slide. So this is just kind of how the consulting side of CIS is broken down. And these are just some like stats on like average starting salaries and things like that. So like for CIS, it tends to be like this graph down here. It's kind of like from 2018. So the data is kind of outdated. But now that number would be around 71,000 just because of the like 3% increase in average income each year. And then we'll go back to computer information system or CS, the overlap. Do you want to do this?
And something that wasn't mentioned that was on the slide is that the CIS program is one of the top 10 in the country. And that's kind of what attracted me towards that in terms of the College of Business side. And a lot of those classes that they mentioned, IT consulting, I know that with Dr. Dillon this semester, you actually consult with real companies in the industry, like leading ones. So So now this is kind of where the commonality between the course overlap is. And so in both programs, CS and CIS, you have to take a database class. And this database class, in terms of the CS department, is 374, which is database systems, formerly a CS 474. And in CIS, it's 330. I'm a CS student. My 374 database class counted for my CIS 330. So that's where I got overlap, but they wouldn't do vice versa where I couldn't get a CIS 330 credit for CS 374. Then you have the intro to programming classes. In the CIS program, it's 221, Principles of Programming. This is in Python, which a lot of people like because like a lot of the big data science and Python's one of the most requested like languages. In CS, they do a more object-oriented approach to programming with Java in 149. In both programs, you'll also take an advanced programming class. It's called CIS 331 in intermediate computer programming, and this is also referred to as the Java class in the CIS department. And this is where you go on; it's a more in-depth Java. And then CS 159 programming fundamentals, which is a continuation of 149 in the same language, which is Java. And this is basically again, I think 159 will count for 331, I think, but I know 149 will also count for 221. I'm not too sure about the CIS for CS credit, but I know many of the CS equivalent classes, if not all of them, count for the CIS. If you could advance to the next slide.
Yep. Now, oh, you can go.
Yeah, and this is actually a roadmap of the CS program in its entirety. So you start with 139 or 149, and you can take 101. You go to 159 and do 227 together. Then you can either go to 345, 261, or 240, and then all the ones in gray are the ones that are required, and all the ones in white are electives. And so if you can gather a screenshot, or this is on the JMU CS website, but this is kind of the roadmap, and there are different also on the website courses of action that you can take to complete this based on how much time you have. I personally, the quickest time you can finish this is 5 semesters from 139 or 149. And this is actually a route I'm taking right now. So yeah, it's possible to lose in 5 semesters, but it's highly recommended that you don't. And as someone who's doing this, I highly recommend you do this as longer than 5 semesters. I think next should be the CIS coursework or the positions. And these are examples of positions in computer science. So you could be a computer scientist, a systems analyst, a computer program, a database administrator, a network admin. And as you see on the right, like people who graduate the CS program are in the top tech companies, as well as startups and a whole bunch of companies that aren't even in the tech space. So again, there's a lot of opportunities for people in computer science. And next slide.
Now, Amy, the president of AIS, will take over the next slides.
Hi, yeah, so this slide is just giving you an overview of the overlap between CIS and business analytics. There are a few classes that you take, like CIS 230 and the Capstone CIS 484, but then most of the programming ones will be solely the CIS side, and then business analytics will be more of the statistical modeling side. And then these are a few titles that some of the recent graduates have held, and the numerous amount of companies that hire under these titles. A lot of the big four here and more consulting companies.
Yeah, so we have right now the CIS graduates who graduated in last semester, Emily Hoang and Trey Rustand. And if you guys want to come on and kind of talk about your experience about the program and what you guys are doing now.
Emily, you want to start?
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm a CODA associate at Capital One. What does that really mean? I'm basically in a program where I'm going to be in training for 6 months to be a software engineer, which is kind of cool. It feels like just like college. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. To talk about CIS a little bit, even watching this presentation, it's kind of hard to see like the difference between the two. For something I would say is that we focus a lot on like consulting skills, and there's a huge broad of like positions that you can get from CIS after college. So you can be an ERD like modeler, you could be a Scrum Master, you could be like something that's specialized like that, all the way to like being a software engineer, something more technical. So it's like you can go the non-technical route, or you can go the very technical route. I really liked the programming aspect of CIS. I enjoyed all my programming classes, and there's a lot in there. So it's not just it's not just non-technical. Obviously, computer science goes way more in depth. But something I noticed from this training program that I'm part of, they basically take non-computer science majors and then they turn them into software engineers. And something I noticed is that I knew a lot of the material beforehand. And I think that says something about the CIS program, that it does teach you like the core aspects of like web dev and like building an application and a system, especially with Capstone, the 44 course. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I think about CIS.
Thanks, Emily. She actually explained that very well, so I'll try to fill the gaps of where she missed. My name is Trey Rustand. I'm a software developer for Maxar Technologies. While my position is actually way more CS oriented, there was so much in CIS that helped me gain the prior skill set I needed to succeed in my position today. Like Emily said, you can go both routes. You can go the kind of technical liaison route, or much more technical side, whether that's going into a software engineering position. Coming out of CIS, you really decide which route you want to take. I kind of looked at it as like a path or a split in the road of, hey, do I want to go be more on the business side, or do I want to go be more on the software engineering side? And my words of advice for if you want to go more on the software engineering side is really focus in those programming classes, since we don't go as in depth as CS does. Really master object-oriented programming, pay attention from day one in Python all the way through to the capstone, pay attention through database design. Don't take any shortcuts, because you really get out what you put in with CIS, and it is a great program and will set you up for success as long as you put in the work that's necessary. And it's one thing I've noticed around a lot of my counterparts in the paths they've taken graduating out of CIS is the people who really fell in love with the programming aspect are the ones who really paid attention since day one, because everything builds off one another. The program overall, honestly, you almost have like you don't realize how much you're getting out of it until you go into the workforce. You will be set up for success whichever route you choose, because it's a demanding program and it's going to expect the best out of you, especially the capstone. So either way, I can't speak to CS, but for CIS people, I think that we can all attest to the fact that it'll challenge you and it'll set you up for success as long as you put in the necessary work. That's really all I had to say as well right now.
Yeah, I just want to add quickly to what Trey just said. I briefly touched upon like the consulting route. So before I actually joined Capital One, I interned as a consultant at a consulting company, one of the big four, and like they really prepared me for that position too. Like it's not just like both technical, and at these consulting firms, you can be like a technical consultant, meaning that you can be a software developer at these like consulting firms, which is kind of cool. And I mean, there's numerous like opportunities with CIS if you want to go into consulting, like the capstone, for example. In my capstone course, we literally had to develop a system for like a real life client. And that was really cool. And then I was a part of that consulting class that Shot kind of briefed over. And like every day, consulting firm would come in and would like lecture the class about like something about the proposals or whatever. And like that was just an amazing opportunity to network with those like companies. And these are like big companies. So it's really cool how easy it was to network and like talk to those companies and stuff like that and get like those connections. And that's something that like I realized that, you know, CIS has a strength in and the College of Business has a strength in. So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to reiterate that like the College of Business does have a lot of company connections, especially Dr. Dillon, who teaches that class. And every time I've wanted to reach out to a company or have them over or have a connection from them, they've instantly like connected me with those most people. So it's you really do have the ability to talk with leading companies in the industry. And I think it was kind of unique how like a lot like Trey is in a softer position, and then Emily was also trained as one. So it's like a lot of the times, a lot of CS majors will, like a lot of things that we learn, we end up getting trained on the job in terms of software. And I think that's also kind of a testament for the CIS people who went to the software engineering route. So I think that's kind of something that is inevitable. So speaking on that, if we can get some testimony from Isaac and Megan on the CS program, if you could advance the next slide, and then we can kind of have an overall panel with the questions. So who wants to start, Isaac or Megan?
I'm fine starting if that's okay with you, Isaac.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, cool. So I'm Megan. I'm a recent grad 2020 in May, so one of the online graduates. And I did the CS kind of route. I'm also a software developer right now at Case Consulting. So, you know, you see the name Case Consulting, you're like, oh, a consulting company. So I'll talk a little bit about that. It's a, so we refer to it as consulting because we work a lot with the customers, even though we're developers. So it's a big kind of developer company, but we actually work face-to-face with the customer all the time. So having good communication skills is always good for that, which I think we do get prepared a little bit in the CS program. We do some group presentations and different projects as well, which I think is quite helpful. But as for CS, I really enjoyed the program because it prepared me a lot for the technical skills that I would need. So we do a lot of different programming languages. The main one you kind of have in the CS program at JMU is going to be Java. We have a lot of classes in Java, but then along the way you'll end up learning C, and then if you take the databases class, you'll do some SQL and some different database kind of types. And sometimes you can go a little bit on the route of web development by taking some of those elective classes, doing HTML, CSS, and then as well, you can do some machine learning kind of stuff by taking different electives, and then you'll learn Python. So we have a bunch of different electives, so you can kind of go on the route that you want based on kind of your interest and the electives that are offered, which is really cool. I ended up going more of a web development route. I was really interested in the idea of software development and specifically web development. So I was able to take the web development class, which was really cool. Now, one of the things I took a lot from the CS program is the ability to teach yourself new things. In the kind of, as a sophomore, typically a sophomore, you'll take a systems class, computer systems 1, where you'll kind of learn C. At this point, you'll kind of have done the first intro to Java kind of courses, and there's those they kind of help you a lot more with. But once you start to learn C, it's a little bit more independent. And, you know, it's a little stressful at the time because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm learning this new language, and they kind of help you along the way with it. But being able to adapt and learn new languages and learn new skills is super important in computer science. One thing we kind of say in my company, at least, is if you're not learning, you're behind, because the technical world is constantly changing. So being able to adapt, learn new skills, learn new languages is really important. And I think the CS department at JMU really helped me with that. I really loved that the class sizes were small because you could ask lots of questions, which is great. And advice for future people that are in the CS program is if you are stuck and have a question, don't be silent. The office hours and the professors in the CS department are fantastic. And oftentimes it's better to ask for help when you need it instead of struggling till the last minute. And then, you know, a couple hours before it's due, you realize, oh, I don't think I'm going to finish in time. Always ask for help if you think you need it. There's no crime in asking for help. On the job a lot, especially as a new person, and I know others can attest to this, there's oftentimes that you realize you need to ask a question, and it can be a little weird at first because you're like, oh, I don't want to be like the new person that's always asking questions. But most of the time they really enjoy that you're asking questions, and they see, hey, this person knows when they need to seek out help, which can be a really great skill to So that's kind of my attestment to the CS program at JMU. And I'll kind of turn it over to Isaac to share a little bit about his experience.
Yeah, that was great. You covered a lot, especially learning how to learn, and because in computer science you're constantly learning new things. So just getting used to knowing that you're never going to know everything, and being excited to go out and learn something new is very, very key. So my name is Isaac, and recently I accepted an offer at American Express. I haven't started working there yet, but it's been a process to even get that. So like I can even talk about the life after college process too, if you guys think that would be interesting. So I guess the first thing I'll talk about is, I guess like life as a computer science major is more of the technical side of things. Earlier in the slide, you said that thinking like a computer, you kind of learn how a computer thinks, and that is very much what computer science is. So oftentimes you'll learn how to write efficient programs, not just programs, and you'll analyze the time complexity and the space complexity. And recently on an interview for American Express, they asked me to write, there was like 6 questions that they wanted me to program in 90 minutes. And so I programmed those. I felt really good about it. And then afterwards I talked to a representative from there about it. And as I was discussing through it, I used something called a hash map for one of my algorithms, and he asked if I could write it in a more efficient way. So, it's that process of, and I guess at the end, he kind of like spoke about it in a way that I didn't even think about the problem. And it kind of showed that there are really layers to programming. And
Yeah, I can't tell if Isaac got cut off there, but yeah, I kind of wanted to we'll go over about like how close knit the CS community is. I don't know if it's the same for the CIS. Like all of us have classes with each other. Oh, can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can hear
Can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So all of us have classes with each other. Actually, a funny way about how me and Isaac met is we met in a wilded out rap battle. And when I first was in my 149 class, and he actually dissed me using like CS terms because we found out we were in majors, and I didn't know, because I was in the intro class, I didn't know what he was talking about, and he like won the rap battle in front of everybody. It was that's a weird tip. And also Megan, we actually met as I think she was my TA, my teaching assistant, and that's something else that the JMU CS department has that the CIS doesn't, is we have Monday through Thursday and Sunday TA hours with the actual lab where people who come in and get help. And that's one of the biggest problems of CS majors, like being frustrated and giving up, and having that support network with a lot of your friends who are TAs and them constantly there to help you is something that's like, it's really dope. And another thing that they didn't touch on in the CS department especially is the research. Unlike other schools where graduate students do research, at JMU in overall, in the JMU CS department in particular, you could actually go up to professors and as an undergrad do research. So I know Lam is working on with like floating point stuff, Bowers is working on geometry, Weichels working on Pogel with like Bayfield. Patrick is working on ethics in his own books. Like I think Stewart's working on Java less. Like everybody's working on something. There's always talks going on, and always research that you can get in on that looks amazing on your resume. So I highly encourage people who are in CS or even in CIS to go up to the professors and get undergrad research work. I think now is the overall panel of overall questions that we have for everybody. Or if yeah. So, did anyone in the panel have anything that someone else said that kind of sparked something that they wanted to touch on before we go into the questions?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Sean, I kind of wanted to go off of what you were talking about research in the department. So I actually was able to do research in the department for my honors capstone project. I was able to do it through there, but I know there's a lot of other opportunities. You don't necessarily have to be an honors student to do a capstone project, as well as just doing research with faculty as well. And there's lots of opportunities for that. They also have a research lunch program, which is really cool. Everybody that's doing research kind of has lunch together once a week, and that's typically in the spring semester. And we just kind of all talk about the research that we're doing, what's going on, and also research opportunities. So that's kind of a really cool thing within the CS department. And also, if you're interested in doing a capstone project within the department, although there's the talk of doing a technical one, you can also do more of a human research one. I actually did one for my honors capstone about review sessions and if those would help entry-level CS students. So I actually came up with the 4th hour program that's in the CS department right now. I don't know if that's under a different name now, but making the review materials for that and seeing how it impacted sense of belonging for intro students, as well as their retention within that first course that they would take.
Yeah, I also wanted to piggyback on research as well. I had the opportunity to do a independent research study for mobile app development my senior year fall, and it was a great opportunity. I just had to go take what I was working on to the department head, pardon me, the department head, Dr. Gowan. He's an amazing professor, and he approved it, which was awesome. And then one other thing I think that'd be very beneficial for you guys to hear about is the capstone. I don't think that Emily and I touched on it too much, but I would honestly say that the whole CIS department as a whole, it's like a cultivating event at the end where you basically take everything you've learned and you put it into the last semester, and it consumes basically your entire semester, which is, it's daunting. Sometimes you have like a lot of late nights and no help. So to touch on what Megan said, you have to be able to, and Isaac, be able to learn and teach yourself things. And honestly, that's one thing I want you guys to take away from this entire webinar is going into this type of field and this type of work, you kind of have to have the, hey, I can do it attitude, and things are going to be intimidating. There's going to be challenges. You're going to be like, I have no clue how to take care of this task on the board, but it's going to get done. And it's one of those things where I felt like the capstone really did prepare me for that, especially with the pandemic hitting, because I didn't know any PHP when I was going into the capstone, and I'm sitting there in my bedroom and I was like, okay, well, I have to build this system in PHP, so we better figure it out pretty quick. And within a matter of a week, I was up and rolling PHP and on the move. So the whole point with the capstone is you have Scrum, you have a team, you have a system, and you're doing front end, you're doing back end, and it's just everything all in one. And it really is that attitude that Megan touched on. And I think that that class alone, the capstone, makes CIS such a special course. And it's kind of hard to explain without you having taken it yet, but it's I'm sure Emily may be able to explain it better. It's just very challenging and definitely worth all the long nights and hard work you put in and to be a grad from CIS program. Yeah, you definitely triggered something in me there. The capstone, just to give a summary to like those who are entry level, CIS students, it's a class where you have to build an application, and you work actually with SMAD majors to build this application. So like that's the consulting aspect of it, having to work with other majors. And that was probably one of the hardest parts too, having to communicate time and schedules with them. And it was also hosted by KPMG, meaning that like they came to our sprint presentations, and then at the end of the semester, you present to like KPMG and all your classmates and stuff if you get into the top 3. I think things are different now with the capstone, but that's how it went during my presentation or my semester. And so like, just to back up what Trey said, I think the capstone was definitely the best experience of my CIS career. I learned so much in there, and like, if you had asked me in the beginning of that semester, like, what do you know about like building a system or an application, I would say 0. I wouldn't know how to connect front end with back end, working with AWS, like connecting those, like the cloud to our application, literally having a domain up, like nothing. But like just that whole entire class experience, you learned so much. And I really like transferred all that knowledge to like my job position now. And I can't be any more thankful like
for that class. So yeah.
And
yeah, I think a point that I'm hearing everyone say is like you have to be able to adapt and learn. And I think that's something that the CS program is about. Like everyone, that's what language should I learn, what technology should I learn. But whatever you need to learn to make a system happen, you should learn it. And a lot of us have actually Megan alluded to some of the programs that we learned. Yeah, like Stack Overflow is absolutely essential. Like the ability to Google as a programmer is probably one of the biggest skills a programmer can have. Like sometimes like I remember like someone was like, we were trying to do a brute force of AES encryption of part of it, and in order to do it, like to make it efficient, they're like, you should learn Go because Go is faster. And I didn't really do any research, but I'm like, all right, I guess I gotta learn Go. You know, it's more like that type of like, don't ever be scared to learn something, but be open to learning the technology, because again, like we're all gonna have to learn and we're all gonna have to adapt. And even the most veteran computer scientists are still learning on a daily basis. And that's one of the fundamentals to the CS Ed CIS. So we can open up the floor to the panels for questions. Does anyone want to raise their hand, unmute their mic, or put it in the chat, and we could ask it ourselves?
guys, feel free to ask anything, like how we got acclimated in our positions, or what were we most nervous about, or literally anything, because we were just in your shoes, so we can still relate to basically everything you're going through and feeling as a student.
Even like interviewing and finding like different types of like offers and stuff like that. Yeah. So I guess I can start with Sanjay's question. How did you get your jobs? I actually applied directly onto Capital One's website. I was just looking for different positions, and I didn't think I could be a software engineer at that point, but after the capstone, like everything was fine. But yeah, I just applied directly on the website. And yeah, but I did want to touch upon that, like a lot of opportunities are presented to you through the College of Business. So they have like so many like networking events and stuff like that, different panels that you can talk with different alumni and stuff like that, just like this one.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the different things that JMU offers. For example, the CISE Career Fair. I know that you guys had it a couple of weeks ago, I'm pretty sure, and that's just so key for getting a first job out of college. You know, they're there looking for you, and even if you're a freshman, sophomore, like it's so great to go there and get the experience, because going through those interviews, like in the real world situations, it just kind of gives you that practice that you need to actually go out there and kill it when it's time for you to go out there and kill it. So no matter what year you are, I would definitely recommend going to every single career fair that's there. Also, what I'd recommend is, well, for my job, so at first I got a position from one of those career fairs, and then COVID and everything happened, things kind of fell through. And after that, I had a period of time where I was doing the typical job search, but not through the connections of JMU. And it was a lot harder to, you know, just by blindly applying. It feels like you're just applying to like a whole bunch of different places and you're not always getting feedback back. And even when you do, sometimes those recruiters can just be not responding as quickly as you want. So one great resource which helped me get in this new position at American Express is the National Society for Black Engineers. And there's a bunch of different like organizations for different groups. I know Women in Technology, they have different programs and stuff like that. But there was a virtual career fair from the National Society of Black Engineers. And going to that, there was just all these different companies where I was able to talk directly with recruiters, send applications, and that's how I ended up connecting and getting this first job. So that's my experience.
Megan, you go ahead.
Okay, cool. So kind of piggybacking off of what Isaac said, the career fair is an excellent opportunity. A ton of JMU alum actually attend the CISE career fair as recruiters. I actually was there as a recruiter, you know, a couple weeks ago, which was a really great experience. So that's an awesome resource. And don't be afraid if you're like a sophomore and you really want an internship, like apply, because I and several other people as sophomores got internships that summer. So it is a thing to get an internship as a sophomore. You can definitely get one. As for how I got the job that I have now, I actually had an internship with Case Consulting the summer after my junior year. And at the end of that internship, it turned into a full-on job opportunity. They offered me a full-time position, which was really awesome. I actually applied through Handshake for that. They weren't actually at the career fair at that point. We're a really small company. So now we've started to kind of branch out and go to different universities for recruitment. But Handshake is a great resource as well. It can really job match you based on what you're interested in. So also take advantage of that resource. I don't think it's very like big, like pushed that to use Handshake, you know, until you want to apply for jobs. But it's great to like look in there and see what kind of opportunities they have, because not all the companies that are on Handshake actually go to the career fair. So take a look there for some opportunities as well.
Yeah, I got mine through an internal reference and paired with something that I was working on during my time at James Madison. Something that we all should really do a better job of when networking is network with the people you know first. Don't be afraid to talk to them, especially JMU alumni, asking for an opportunity and letting them know that you're willing to work hard for it. Myself included. The company I work for is amazing. I love it, Maxar Technologies. I'm like one of the only Duke dogs I know that's there. So I would love to have more of you join me, because I'm like throwing up the Zoom background of the Duke dog during stand-ups. I'm like, where my dog's at? But seriously, always reach out to JMU alumni first, family, friends. Have your resume back up what you've worked on during your time at James Madison, all your CS, CIS courses. And another thing that isn't touched upon all the time is maybe build something outside of school. That really shows initiative. It shows that you're willing to build something on your own and kind of further what you'd like to work on in the future. And honestly, it gives you that much more practice, and you never know where it can take you. So really network with the people you know, JMU alumni connections, and make sure your resume backs up the things you've done so you're able to display that to these employers when you're applying to different positions.
Yeah, and like you were saying, Trey, the personal projects is actually really big. Acting as a recruiter this year, we really love it when students actually do personal projects, because it shows that you're interested in learning, you're challenging yourself, and if you want to do something, you kind of go out and do it. So personal projects can kind of be a little scary at first, but if you want a really great resume booster and maybe you haven't had previous job experience, that's a great way to kind of start.
And start small for your personal projects. Don't try and build, Google on your first try. Just do it like a single page app, something super small, and then work up from there.
Yeah, that kind of goes off of Mary's question. What's kind of the coolest thing you developed during your time at JMU? I know Trey didn't mention this, but he had a whole startup, and he had a startup webinar not too long ago. So Trey, you can kind of start off about the stuff you built in your time at JMU.
Yeah, I'll honestly, I'll keep it very short. After I say this, go watch the startup webinar. You'll learn so much more about, like, I could talk about it for hours, but we basically turned the Facebook rideshare pages at James Madison into an application. And that was ultimately like a full-blown process and a job outside of school. It kept me busy 24/7 along with the classes I was taking. And that's why I touched on having a personal project that you're potentially working on. We just happened to go kind of fast, like Isaac just said, don't do. And it definitely was difficult to do while being a student, but it paid dividends in the long run because we learned so much, and it really boosted our resume to the point where it showed that we were interested in what we were doing, the technology field, and we're kind of able to take an idea from a napkin to complete inception and launch it on the App Store. So I really also want to let you guys know that if you ever have any questions about anything, I want to make myself a resource for you all students, because it makes it that much better when you have a mentor or someone to talk to. It's kind of walk those paths. And I'd be willing to talk to you guys about the things that I did with the application that we developed while I was in school as well. So we don't have to talk too much about it right now.
And then that's something I wish that would be more emphasized as a resource, like the entrepreneurship side of things and the startup side of things. Like that's really dope. And Trey has been a huge mentor for me as well, and he's always open to questions. Kind of speaking on the point of shining to employers with personal projects, is actually how I met Emily and I think Amanda and Danielle. We were giving a presentation to the CIS BSAN Executive Council, I think, and they're basically all the hiring partners of JMU, like the big tech companies. And they were actually showing a project that they did in front of all these employers, and they were very impressed, and I was impressed. So I reached out to her. So if she can talk about that.
Yeah, so what I had built, speaking of the research projects that you guys were also talking about, and for anyone who's a CIS student, I didn't know about this, but you can actually reach out to your professor if you want to do like an independent study with them. So that's what I did. The two girls and I, we built a smart mirror using Raspberry Pi. So this is actually a really, I don't say simple, it's a really popular introductory project if you're interested in like learning more about technology, because there's so many resources online, and people kind of already code most of it for you, so you kind of have to just put it together. And that I learned so much through that too. So that was probably the coolest thing I built. Unfortunately, we didn't get to finish it just because of COVID happening. We had to return the computer monitor, which would have been the mirror, back to the professor so he could finish it. But we learned so much, and I encourage you, if you guys are looking for like an independent project, you could get a team, like a group of friends or something in the same major, and do like something small like that, like a smart mirror, or even smaller, like a small robot or something. I don't really know, but definitely go out of your boundaries to explore a little bit.
Yeah, and something that's not like to emphasize too much is like going into hackathons. I know Trey's been in hackathons. I actually did my first hackathon a couple of days ago, and then we actually host hackathons where you can like make this project in a day or weekend time in front of employers to win a prize and meet people who want to develop with you. So in a month, we're having the election hackathon where you can design your own voting system. We had the Black Lives Matter hackathon. If you go to DevPost or any hackathon site, there are always hackathons on specific skills, whether it's building hardware, whether it's building software, that like just to learn those new technologies. I highly encourage like you do that, because I learned more past weekend than I did in some classes. So I highly encourage that. Does anyone else have any questions, or does Megan or Isaac want to add anything about the projects they worked on?
I saw Jim asked for hardest class. Let's see, for me, maybe, I had to take this 400 level computer science class called Parallel and Distributed Structures. It was tough. It was like, each computer science class I feel like is tough, but this was tough. So it's a really interesting topic, and also in there, like, besides from your typical, let's say bi-monthly programming assignments, you also had a research project, like that was semester long. So managing your time between the two of those, it was an interesting experience, but I got through it. So that was my hardest class.
Yeah, hardest class. So going off of what Isaac said, so is that your systems elective, Isaac?
Yeah, I actually took several systems electives, but yeah.
Yeah, so the systems electives are generally considered, I think in the CS department, some of the harder classes that you have to take. Usually, if you kind of do the program starting as a freshman, those are kind of geared towards doing those your senior year. But obviously you can do those earlier depending on how you kind of move your classes around. So I actually took the compilers class, which is another systems elective, and I think that was probably one of my hardest classes just because it encompasses a lot of the stuff that you learn throughout, your CS career at JMU. So, you kind of have to fit all the pieces together, but the class itself was super rewarding because pretty much at the end you build the compiler, which is essentially, right, it checks the code, makes sure the syntax is right, everything like that. So it's a really awesome project, but it is a tough class. But I think, you know, the program kind of gets you ready. So by that time you take the class, you have all the skills you need. It's just using them all together and remembering what you learned, but super rewarding.
Yeah, definitely. I actually went, like after I graduated, I went back to that project, and since it incorporates those other projects, like I kind of saw how they like played with it to see how they actually incorporated. So that's, even though it was really hard, I think it was good. I took a lot away from it too.
Yeah, I'm in compilers right now, and I like it right now. I like it a lot, actually. It does combine what we learned in programming languages, what we learned in 261, and all that. Another question that was in the chat was, do you guys keep in touch with other alumni, like other classmates? And do you guys mentor other current students or whatnot? I know it's kind of, and kind of going off of that, someone asked, how does it feel like being COVID graduates? So kind of like, how'd you, like, what's your relationship with your classmates, like with COVID and all that? And because you guys just graduated, so.
Yeah, so it was, as like, from the perspective of being like a recruiter for the CISE Career Fair a couple weeks ago, it was really cool because I actually got to see a lot of the students I TA'd for actually in my pool of the people that just decided to interview. And it was so cool getting to like see how they've kind of went from, you know, usually I typically TA when they're like freshmen, sophomores, and now they're juniors and getting ready to apply for their internships. So it was super cool seeing that. As for communication with alum, it just so happened that a lot of my friends that are alum just ended up going all over the place, all over the United States. So it's a little bit trickier to stay in touch. It's a lot of FaceTime, Zoom kind of things. But it's fun. It's good to kind of keep in touch with other people. I'm also in touch with some of my friends that are juniors still, check in with them every so often, see how they're doing. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, interesting in the world of COVID now. Everything's online, so most of the time you end up seeing people or keeping in touch online, which is kind of nice for the distance aspect, because if people are still spread out all over, you know, the United States, you still can kind of communicate with them. Now it's super common for us to communicate virtually. But yeah, that's kind of where I am at right now.
Yes, I can follow up with that. In terms of keeping in touch with other alumni and students, as Shot mentioned, I talk to Shot all the time. Love talking about minority programmers. I think we probably touch base 3 or 4 times every single week. Other than Shot, there's a few other people in the CIS program who actually ask questions when they can't get to a teacher's office hours, dealing with simple Java things or database things. For career advice, people reach out all the time. I've already mentioned to you guys, I would love to help you any way I can. I love helping JMU, love JMU to death, best school in the nation, hands down, we all know it. So I seriously bleed purple, and I love the alumni network and the students and the professors. It was my favorite 4 years. So I just want you guys to know that are listening that we seriously have your best interests in mind and would love to be a service to you guys.
Yeah, I keep in contact with a couple of my friends too. And I'm like right now, since I don't have that 40-hour-a-week job, I have a lot more time to connect with people, especially in like all of you guys, any undergrads that like were looking for some kind of mentorship thing. I definitely have the time to do it right now. So, you know, that's always out there.
Yeah, and I met some of my best friends in the CIS program. So of course I keep up with them. And in terms of alumni, also outside of my class, I reached out to people on LinkedIn like before my interviews and stuff to see how like their experience was. And I recommend you guys do that too if you guys want. That's something that helped me a lot, and everyone was so willing to help me. And I really am so grateful for these alumni that, reached out back to me to help me through the process of being like a CIS major and stuff like that. And I actually switched from finance to CIS mid-junior year. So, alumni helped me with that too. It was a roller coaster, my time at JMU, but being a COVID graduate was really weird. I think everyone can attest that all your classes were switched online, and like, I'm sure Capstone, I'm not really sure how Capstone even converted to be online, but I'm sure that was terrible.
I agree, it was awful.
All right, so is anything else that anyone would like to add before we sign off?
Yeah, I saw one of the questions said like, what would you suggest to students who are struggling incredibly, even in the intro courses? I would say to just stick with it. It's really tough. These are both really tough majors. And if you think that like at the end, like it's hard to know if it's something that you like would want to do since you haven't done it yet. But if you stick with it, despite how hard it is, then like you'll grow immensely. I don't want to say you'll grow immensely, but like I feel like each semester that I had was like really, really tough. And I was like, oh man, I have so much work. How do all these other people have so much more free time? But by sticking with it, like I got to this point where, I guess I'm done with it. So
Isaac, you hit the nail on the head with that. Like, we're all sitting here and we're done. To touch on what Isaac just said, you will not have as much free time as a lot of your peers. Like, you're going to be busy Friday and Saturday a lot. Like, it's going to be something where you're not going to be able to go out when all your friends are partying. That happens often. And I'll just be blunt. You're going to make good money. Like, it's a position in the world that pays very well. And I promise you, when you get your offer letter, you're going to be like, wow, it was all worth it. You're going to be like, holy smokes, didn't even know that could happen. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You'll be able to live and breathe and survive post-grad, which is amazing. And it just so happens that the positions in the fields that you guys are going to be going into are in such high demand. These are positions that the world needs. You're going to be able to change the world through technology, and that's something that is so pertinent in today's society. So when things get tough, honestly, study harder. And the thing I've learned the most through my college career was I've grown so much more from my failures than any success I've ever had. Every time I failed, I got that much better at what I was doing. When I first started Java, I was awful. I literally just did not grasp object-oriented programming in the beginning. And now that's my job. So it's one of those things where it just shows like, hey, if you're going to fail hard, fail fast, but learn from it and move on. And you're just going to be better at it when the time comes again. So don't get discouraged. Like Isaac said, just keep at it, keep working. And I promise things will get better.
Yeah, and going off of that, it's actually a really good thing to do things with trial and error sometimes. And it's okay if things don't work the first time, because then you're going to know what doesn't work. When you go into industry, it's a good experience to have times where you failed, because you won't make the same mistake twice, which is a huge advantage. So don't be afraid of like failing the first time when you go to submit your project. Like, that's going to happen. Not everybody gets it in the first try 100%. And also, like, connect with your peers, connect with your teachers, connect with your professors. And also, I know the CS department has TAs. Utilize that resource. It is super important. I know me being kind of stubborn, I'm like, oh no, I don't need help sometimes. I learn fast to go get help when you need help. The professors, it kind of is a little frightening the first time, especially if you're in an intro class, to, seek out them, go to their office hours. I know now it's mostly virtual. But once you do it the first time, it'll be less scary the second time. So kind of peel that Band-Aid off and kind of succumb to it a little bit. But it's really worth it to seek help when you need help. And also, it's okay to have that first kind of failure, because you will succeed. It's just kind of going through that, and you're kind of be like, oh, I haven't gotten the project yet. But just ask for help if you need it, and don't be afraid to fail. That's kind of my two big things.
Yeah, I completely support what everyone just said. It's all new material, you're still learning. So I encourage you guys not to be discouraged by your struggle, and just be more motivated by it. You know, you tried your best. As long as you tried your best, like that's what counts in my book, like personally. Yeah, and I forgot to mention earlier, but if anyone wants to reach out to me, like go ahead. I'd also love to have like mentor some students, and yeah.
Yeah, that was great final points. I'll make sure to give everyone's LinkedIn or contact information at the end. And again, don't, like they said, don't get encouraged, because we've personally seen a lot of people get eliminated. Like it's very disheartening, and the intro material, although it seems hard, like you can learn the first 2 intro classes in 2 weeks. Like if you really put your mind to it. And so it's like it's about how much time you dedicate, and it's about really tackling that problem. And if you are out here really motivated in the intro class, and you're helping other students, like those students are going to look out for you for the rest of your CS career or CIS career. So it's like really, really grinding that in the beginning time and power through it, because it can be done. And, I'm a testament to that, and all of us are. So again, congratulations on graduating, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out, and thanks for everyone for listening.
Had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you.